And then years later, Steve's brother, Sean, came to this Innocence Network conference and basically, just pigeonholed Peter Neufeld, who then sent him over to Hui Dao, who's the head of our intake department, and, he just pled his case.
Alba Morales was new to the Innocence Project.
Steve's was actually one of the very first cases that I picked up. When I came on board, I remember Steve's case being presented at one of the very first intake meetings, and we all agreed that it met the mandate and that it was a case that we really should have taken.
I got a call from Mandy DeLone, who's the executive director of the Innocent Project. She's right under Barry Schuck and Peter Neufeld, saying they were going to reopen Stephen's case, and I said, thank you, God.
I remember reading the transcript and sort of, talking to my paralegal and saying, I think we're missing a portion. I think there's something. It was just unbelievable to me that this man was convicted based on the evidence presented. And I kept thinking there must be some huge gap in my understanding of what the testimony was or what the evidence was, and was pretty horrified to find out that there wasn't a gap, that really, the evidence that was presented against him is all they had, and that they were able to get a conviction out of that. I thought was pretty spectacularly shocking.
Oneida County District Attorney Scott McNamara quickly agreed to release evidence from the case for another round of DNA testing, which began in June of 2008.
And they told me it was going to be 3 to 6 months. It may be up to a year because the evidence was now 24 years old. And don't forget, it could come back inconclusive again because the evidence was, older.
According to Alba Morales, Steve didn't seem to be getting his hopes up.
I think I was mostly struck by just how quiet and calm he seemed.
She remembers their first meeting in prison.
He felt like somebody who maybe he was just afraid, because he'd been through it before, where he'd gotten the testing and you think, oh, here's, your golden ticket and your the key to the prison door, and it didn't work out for him that time. So I almost wonder if he maybe was holding back a little bit because he didn't want to get ahead of himself, having been down that road before.
Steve certainly wasn't alone. Many other inmates had been down that road before, too. Larry Golden was president of the Oneida County Bar Association when he first began researching the Innocence Project.
Being a lawyer, and although I'm not involved in criminal practice, I've always been concerned about wrongful convictions, but didn't realize how much this organization had done in that regard. And I decided that it would be a worthwhile venture for the Bar Association to engage in some programs that would promote public awareness about the very things that I, as an attorney, was finding out about just by going to their website.
In November 2008, Golden organized a 5-day program called The Art of Innocence, which was held at Munson Williams Proctor Arts Institute in Utica.
I was arrested for that crime. Attempted murder, kidnapping, rape, robbery, assault, a host of charges.
The program featured panel discussions with exonerees, a live performance of the off-Broadway play The Exonerated, and screenings of the documentary film After Innocence.
But a real highlight was that Sylvia Bouchard attended, and during the question and answer period would get up and would make a statement that she was the mother of Stephen Barnes, and she wanted them all to know and understand what it was like to be the mother of someone who was wrongfully convicted. She never celebrated holidays or birthdays. Time had in many respects stood still. She would end each of her little statements by saying, it's my hope and my prayer that this Christmas, Stephen will be home to celebrate Christmas with me.
I knew that his family was absolutely desperate to have him home by the holidays, and I wasn't at all sure that was going to happen. And so when it did happen, that was really wonderful.
It was the Friday before Thanksgiving, and I came home, and my husband said to me, you got to call the Innocent Project. They just called.
It was my daughter's 10th birthday. It was November 21st, 2008.
So I called, and his lawyer was on another line, and they said, can she call you back in half an hour? And I said, well, I'm going to give you my daughter's number because I promised my granddaughter I'd be there when she got off the bus with her presents.
My brother's lawyer from the Innocence Project called in my house looking for my mom, and that was kind of unusual. She didn't do that. And I said, no, she's not here yet. She's probably at home. You can reach her up there. And
so we go down to my daughter's house, and my daughter meets me on the front porch. She goes, Mom, you got to call the Innocent Project. They've called here again. So I go, wow.
We kind of figured something was up because she had tried so hard. So my mom called back down to New York and got a hold of the lawyer. And
she said, are you gearing up for Thanksgiving? And I said, not really, because we always held out hope Steve would be home. And she said a sentence I'll never forget as long as I live. Said another place at the table, your son's coming home on Tuesday.
And at that point, she was screaming and yelling and crying, and he's coming home, he's coming home. And
she's like, who's coming home? She got so upset. I said, your brother's coming home on Tuesday. He's getting released.
And just then, Steve called.
And my daughter accepted charges. She said, Mom's got to talk to you. I couldn't wait another sentence. I just said to him, Steve, you're coming home. And he just started crying. He hollered out to everybody. He goes, guys, I'm going home. And you hear the guards cheering and the inmates are banging on the bars. And this went on for quite a few minutes. And he couldn't talk and I couldn't talk.
The next day, Sylvia went for her weekly visit, just like always.
So, of course, the guards all knew the testing was going on. They were very supportive of Steve. They loved him down there. He was one of the best inmates they had.
He just seemed very well liked.
Alba Morales, Steve's Innocence Project attorney.
As much as it sounds strange to say it, I almost want to say respected, but it seemed like the people there genuinely liked him.
And when I walked in and they processed me, I said, this is the last time you have to process me. And they went, is he coming home? I go, yeah. And they all came running over and congratulating us. And then Steve walked in the visiting room and we just collapsed in each other's arms and we just sighed. And I'll never forget the guy in the visiting room said, I'm going to do something I'd never done in my life as all my years as a correction officer. I'm going to shake an inmate's hand. He said, you told me years ago you were innocent. I believed you then. And he said, now everybody knows. Tuesday he came home.